Fallout New Vegas is the latest game in the Fallout franchise, originally developed by Interplay but now owned by Bethesda Softworks. For those unfamiliar with the games, Fallout's world takes place in a post-apocalyptic future where humanity nearly destroyed itself during a nuclear world war, but after developing science fiction technology like laser pistols, robots, and underground shelters. However, despite this amazing technology, the United States culturally remained stuck in the 1950s. Basically, take the concept of the Mad Max films, but taking place on the planet Tatooine from Star Wars, and Frank Sinatra rules the planet. If you can imagine that, then you've got a pretty good idea what playing the Fallout games is like. Fallout New Vegas is, in a way, a sequel to Fallout 3 as it takes place 4 years after that game, though the storyline of New Vegas is impacted more heavily by the events from Fallout 1 and 2, since New Vegas is much closer to California, where the first two games took place, and Fallout 3 took place in Washington, D.C. You play a courier who was delivering an important package across the Mojave Desert, but was ambushed by bandits. Shot in the head and left for dead, you are rescued by a small-town doctor who manages to patch you up, though you suffer severe amnesia. The first part of the game follows your attempts to find out who stole your package, get it back, and then deliver it, while the second half of the game involves participating in a war between different factions that want control of the New Vegas Strip, though each group has their own motivations for wanting the city. Gameplay-wise, Fallout New Vegas uses the same game engine and mechanics as Fallout 3, though there are some subtle changes, such as the option to play the game more like a third-person shooter, and ignore the turn-based VATS combat targeting system, though by doing so you miss out on special maneuvers only performable through VATS. Another change is that you can customize weapons if you find the parts, and you can also craft ammunition at workbenches. If you choose to recruit the companion party members, you can now issue orders through an easier-to-use menu called the Companion Wheel, rather than needing to issue orders through dialogue options like in Fallout 3. Lastly, in addition to building or losing karma with factions based on your interactions with those faction members, you can also gain separate alignment points called reputation that slightly impacts the result of dialogue tree options with certain NPCs belonging to these factions. The Fallout games are, in a way, scavenger hunt games, and they encourage this behavior in two ways. Firstly, the most obvious, to search the wasteland for items or people needed to complete quests. The second way is through conversation dialogue trees and the enormous amount of side quests that little impact the main storyline, but offer several different outcomes depending on the choices you make. Like previous games in the series, these optional side quests constitute the overwhelming majority of gameplay time, while the primary storyline quests concerning the package and the faction war represent only a small portion of the game. I suppose I should talk a little about the areas of the gameplay I dislike. First, I think there is too much emphasis on inventory management. It seems clear to me now that Bethesda favors computer RPGs with a heavy emphasis on resource management, but I personally dislike when this emphasis results in constantly needing to bring up the inventory menu and switch through dozens of screens to find the item I want to equip. I also think many of the items in the game just shouldn't be there. I don't understand the importance on spending the bulk of my playtime scanning the area for items, most of which are just vendor trash. That you need to actually point to the items with your crosshairs to see what they are is also highly annoying. This aspect of the controls didn't bother me for the first few hours, but after a couple days, it really started to piss me off if the gameplay comes to a halt whenever I need to search for more ammo, only to find the majority of items in a room are just coffee mugs and empty bottles. I realize this is realistic, but realism should come at the expense of gameplay. Many items are also randomly generated, reducing the importance of realism in the game anyway. Another aspect of the game I take issue with is that, ultimately, you can be a diabolical bastard, and yet once you reach Las Vegas and reach Mr. Big, every faction wants to recruit you, even if you slaughtered entire towns. Thus, the game world simply doesn't behave in a way I consider to be realistic. I also think it is sloppy that even if no one saw you commit a crime, you will lose karma points with that faction, resulting in them attacking you. I think you should only lose karma from a faction if that faction discovers you committed the crime. That said, Fallout New Vegas is overall a well-designed game that can provide many tens of hours of gameplay if you pursue all the side quests, and is worth checking out if you enjoyed any of the Fallout games. Or if you are looking for a computer RPG that isn't a stereotypical high fantasy story like the overwhelming majority of computer RPGs tend to be.